everybody.
Thank you so much.
How you doing?
Yes. Full room. I was hoping you guys would show out. South by Southwest always brings the enthusiasm. The only thing I'm stressed about is we need more than an hour to discuss this gentleman's incredible body of work. So we're going to do our best. Remember, you can submit questions as we go, and we'll try to incorporate them. Mr. Bacon, sir, what inspired your acting career? Can you trace it to like one thing back in the day?
Well, I think honestly, I wanted to become an actor before I knew what an actor really was. I was the youngest of 6, and by quite a few years, there was an 8-year gap between me and my eldest, my next sibling in line. And when I would walk into a room, certainly a room of my family members, or if there was a party, I just had this really strong, burning desire for everybody to look at me. It was 100%, and I had no idea what an actor was, but I knew that, I just wanted the attention. And so that was really the genesis of it. And then, through the years, I realized that there's an actual skill set there that has to be developed and worked on and trained at. And so I did all those things, researched, but it was really at first about just having as many eyeballs on me as possible.
Right. But you left home to study acting, right?
Yeah, I left home. Well, I grew up in Philly, yep, go Birds. And I did a lot. I did as much as I could in Philadelphia between the ages of probably 12 and 17, which was local theater. I was an apprentice. I was literally like sweeping the stage in a theater when I was a teenager. And then when I got out of high school, I just wanted to get to New York and start taking a swing at it.
Right. Is Animal House is Kevin's first screen credit, as many of you are aware? Is that how you got your SAG card?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it might be. It might be. I don't think I was SAG. Yeah, I don't think I was SAG when I did Animal House. I was at Circle in the Square in a 2-year what they call the professional workshop. It was a 2-year program. I was also a waiter and a busboy, kind of very traditional, New York trajectory in terms of a theater career, and I was really interested, mostly I think at that point I liked movies, I loved movies, but I was really more interested in doing theater. And serendipitously, this casting director who was working on Animal House decided to stop by the acting school where I was acting and said, we need some preppy freshmen wet behind the ears. And the guy, the head of the school said, I got just the guy. They sent me over, and I met John Landis, and there really, I don't remember if there was any dialogue. I don't remember reading anything, because there really wasn't anything to read. Right. And John Landis, who's the director of Animal House, said, make a smarmy face. And I really didn't know what the word smarmy meant, but I had a sort of image of what it could possibly mean. So I went to John, I did some kind of face, basically, and he's like, I love that, it's smarmy. And then I got a call back, and they called me back, and he said, do the smarmy. And so I did it again, and then I got the gig.
A great audition success story. Do people still recognize you from Animal House?
They didn't recognize me now. Yeah. They didn't recognize me then. Honestly, by the time the movie came out, so in the movie, for those of you who haven't seen it, I played a preppy freshman wet behind the ears with a very, very short sort of haircut and very conservative clothes. And then at one point, I'm in the ROTC, so I'm in uniform at the end of the movie. And I really believed that I was off to the races to become a giant movie star. And when the movie came out, I hadn't been able to get any other employment in between during that year. So I was waiting tables. I had to ask for the night off from work. And, I went to the party and nobody recognized me. My hair was longer, and it was a combination of a terrible, terrible night, just in terms of like the disappointment for what I believed how this one movie was going to change my life. Right. That was my naivete. It took me there, but I had real delusions of grandeur. But also combined with that was a great humbling kind of moment where you go, okay, schmuck, you're not as cool as you think, and get to work.
Right. How you said you did go back to wait tables? How long before Friday the 13th came along?
Well, let's see. Probably a couple of years, a year. I'm not so good on the timeline. I think before that, I also was working on the soap operas, and I was doing theater. I know that when I did Friday the 13th, I was working off Broadway because I remember that the Friday the 13th was shot in a town called Blairstown, New Jersey, which was on the other side of the George Washington Bridge, and they didn't have transportation for me to get back and forth. They would sometimes put me up in this shitty motel, and at one point I said, but I got to get back because I've got a show, a half hour. I got to get back to the village for a show tonight. And they said, fine. And they literally took me to the side of the highway and left me there for a bus to get me across the George Washington Bridge and try to make it downtown to the village in time for a half hour. So I don't know if I ever missed the show, but I came pretty close.
Wow. Nice. Okay, so Friday the 13th. This is, again, like I said, we don't have enough time. It's like grouping Kevin's work together in sections. So I'm thinking Friday the 13th, Footloose, Flatliners.
Everything that begins with F.
Plus Tremors. Yeah.
And by the way, those are all, well, let's see. I'm starting to have this list of movies that have been remade, which is really interesting. Footloose and Flatliners, and there's been about 8. I don't know how many Friday the 13th sequels there's been, but at least 13, I think.
Yeah, but you're number one, the first, the flagship.
The flagship movie with dead teens.
Yeah. You were saying earlier that Friday the 13th holds a place in your work because of fan appreciation, yes?
Well, when people, sometimes if you, land at an airport or show up at an event, there's people who have things for you to sign. And the number one picture that I've signed in my life is me dead with an arrow through my throat. And, blood pouring out of and I always think to myself, this is the picture that you want, in the den, is me dead? I mean, I don't know. What?
It's a good death. It's a memorable one. We'll get to some of those others as we come along. So let's talk about Footloose.
Okay.
One of the things I love is that you are a dancer, but you have talked about how you did have body doubles. But can you talk about kind of just, do people still come up to you and want to know about that film, or is it just...
Literally, when we were just having our picture taken, the photographer said, I was going to ask you to do the Footloose dance, which, by the way, I don't really even know what the Footloose dance is, but there is this idea that there's one dance. Yeah, I mean, listen, I've spoken about this before, but my worst nightmare is to be at a wedding and the DJ puts on the music, because... What happens is, and this is why I'm a Scrooge about this, but I really don't like weddings because they always start out being about the bride and the groom. And then there's alcohol involved. And by about 10:30, the song comes on, and suddenly the wedding has become about me getting out and dancing to that song. And people will literally form a circle around me and clap their hands and act me, they're like I'm a trained monkey or something like that. I always think to myself, this day is not supposed to be about me. This is the day about the bride and groom. And so I have gone to the DJs and said, please don't play that song. In fact, we were just at a bar the other night, some I don't know, some event, and I did exactly the same thing. Not because I don't love the song. I do love the song. Not because I'm not proud of the movie, 100% proud of it. But, you know, the interesting thing about that movie was that I was not a trained dancer. I loved to go out dancing. I loved, when I grew up, you know, in Philly, dancing was like a big part of that, you know, at the dance, you know, school. And all that music, and then when I moved to New York, I loved Studio 54. I used to go by myself to Studio 54 and dance until like 4 o'clock in the morning, all alone, in the middle of that sea of, you know, super wealthy people. And this is when I was a waiter.
Yeah.
But I just always loved it. But when they sent the script to me, I didn't know that it was a dance movie. The script was not written in that way at all. And there was no indication other than they would sort of have like one line that would say, you know, he gets pissed off and dances or something like that. You know what I mean? He lights a cigarette and throws a bottle and breaks and, you know, dances around. So they had talked about like choreographers, and who actually, the woman who choreographed the movie just passed recently, and they, her name was Lynn Taylor Corbett. And when I heard that there was a choreographer, I was like, I don't really need a choreographer. You could just turn the music on, and I'll just dance around. Just you know, just turn it on, and I'll have fun with it. They were like, no. You don't understand what's going on here.
How many times have you think you've seen that? Or is, yeah.
Honestly,
or do you avoid rewatching?
I've seen it maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 times maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One fun fact I learned about Kevin is that his children have not seen Footloose.
They haven't. No, they haven't seen it.
Which is a crime, and since they're adults, I think they're doing it on purpose now.
Yeah.
But we'll fix it eventually.
What's up with that?
Yeah. The warehouse dance sequence, it has been redone, and as it should. How did you navigate? Because you said Animal House was kind of humbling. Obviously, that was a more supporting, smaller role, and then Footloose, you're the lead. How did you navigate the intensity of recognition and fame after Footloose?
Not very well. It's what I wanted. Okay, first off, let me make that clear. It's like, you know, I had no one to blame but myself, because it was definitely my dream to have all those things, my name in lights, and to sit on the Johnny Carson show with actual Johnny Carson. That's how old I am, and to actually get a chance to, you know, walk a red carpet and you know, have people whatever. But until you really have that, you don't really realize there's just something kind of strange about it, to live your life like that all the time. At this point in my life, I'm completely used to it, and I think it would be strange to not live that way. But I think I was, I think I had the sort of classic, emperor's new clothes. What's that syndrome?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, so I was very resistant of it. Like I didn't really want to do press, and I didn't want to be on magazines all of a sudden. And I think part of it was that in the course of moving to New York and the films that I grew up watching, the movies of Sidney Lumet and of Scorsese and all of these great sort of like edgy New York-y kind of filmmakers and actors, that combined with the New York theater scene, all I wanted to be was a serious actor. I didn't want to be a pop star. So when it came to the promotion of that movie, everybody wanted me to dance, and everybody wanted me to be on, teen magazines and have my shirt off and all those kinds of things. And it just was so the opposite of how I wanted to view myself.
Right.
So I think I kind of pushed it back.
Yeah. Before we move on to kind of your incredible ensemble work, we've got to talk about Tremors. Tremors, I think, might have been my first Kevin Bacon movie. It was either Footloose or Tremors. What I love about kind of the lore of Tremors is that it wasn't necessarily a success, but thanks to Blockbuster, R.I.P.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that one is the one that has had the most legs afterwards, Tremors?
Wow, it's had a lot of legs, and it's another one of those ones that they went and made another 9 of them. When I read the script, I remember saying to my wife, I can't believe we were kind of running out of money, and I think we had just gotten pregnant, and really needed the gig, and I was feeling a lot of just kind of external pressure, to that my life was I had to get super responsible about things, and I was kind of horrified that I was doing a movie about these underground worms, again because I thought I was a serious actor. And here I was going out with my pregnant wife to fight worms in the desert, and yet, the movie just has a certain kind of charm, and as you pointed out, it appealed so much to Heartland America, and it was one of those movies that, while it definitely did not perform at the box office, I really don't think they had any kind of a clue on how to market it. Horror and comedy sometimes can be a difficult kind of a story to tell on a poster or in the way that you sell it. But it did really have this big life on VHS. And I'll tell you something funny about the movie. The movie's original title was Beneath Perfection.
Not as strong.
It's a great title. And this is the actual crew jacket.
Oh, yeah!
From 1990 or whatever it was. I don't know.
Nice.
Is it 90s or is it 80s? I don't know.
Late
90s? I don't know.
Oh, someone had the exact date on
Yeah.
there. That's excellent. Beneath Perfection does make it sound like less horrific in my mind. But
Yeah, well, the town was called Perfection, and then it's Beneath. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Tremors is probably a better title.
A rare horror comedy that exists mainly in the day. I think that's another
true.
achievement that it just.
That's true, and Fred Ward was fantastic, and it also had something that was, you don't see that much anymore, and even at that time, which was practical effects, puppets, monsters that were, there was guys, off camera pulling strings and monofilament and using their hands and stuff like that, which gave it a certain, just kind of a charm, I think, that you really didn't necessarily see in a monster movie.
Yeah. When in kind of your earliest work, what were some of your favorite things about what you got to absorb, as you're going? I feel like you kind of learn on each film or TV show you do, whether certain things about kind of how to be on a set, how to prep, how did that kind of evolve early on?
Well, I tell you, I'm still learning. When I walked on the set of Animal House, I looked around, and I was so the first day I was so terrified and so overwhelmed with the fact that they threw me into a chair and they cut all my hair off, and then they ran me into this wardrobe thing, and they tried to get these clothes on me, and I had given them the wrong sizes, so the costumers were all pissed off, and because they had to had to tailor all the things, and then I sat there in this tiny little honey wagon, and then it didn't work that day, and then I didn't work for a week. I sat in a hotel on the side of the highway. And when I went back to the set, I did the first scene, and then I started to get a little bit more, just a little bit more at ease. And then I started to look around and go, "Ooh, what's that thing do? What's that? Why do they have that crane there? Why are those? What's that? What are they talking about? Millimeter? What's this piece of gear? Or how do they pack this track up and get? You know what I mean? So I started to get really fascinated in filmmaking and all the various pieces of it, and also in how, as an actor, you can work in that medium, because I had done hardly any television or film, and I've been working on the stage, and there is something different about it. I mean, I think that you have to kind of learn that, and to this day, I mean, I absolutely love being on a set. I love watching it. I like even driving by somebody else's set, just to see it, or it's just always something that's been magical.
Yeah. I would love to move on to some of the ensembles you've been a part of.
Okay.
Award-winning. Let's get into JFK, A Few Good Men, and I want to add A River Wild there because that's also one of my favorites, and Apollo 13. Is there an art or something extra excellent about being part of an ensemble, if it relieves any pressure, or it's just more of a communal?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it relieves pressure, but I think that I just like it because I like to be around actors, and I like to be listening to them and playing with them, like playing the play, to be part of a group that's telling a story. Back from I'm not saying this because you didn't mention this one, but Diner was very much an ensemble thing that I did with a bunch of very young guys. We were all in one hotel down in Baltimore, in our 20s, single, and there was a great kind of feeling of being part of an ensemble, and I think that. Coming from the theater, that's always, you have the word company. It's a company, right? You don't really use that so much in movies, There's a couple of directors who kind of seem like they have a company that they use, Christopher Guest or someone like that. But that's not, a lot of movie making is inherently individualized in the way that people, kind of focus on a close-up, or someone's star power, or it's very hierarchical.
Right.
So if you can find yourself into a film that has an ensemble, I love it. I think it's a great feeling.
Yeah. Is there one thing from Mr. Nicholson that you enjoyed watching him and watching him work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really only had the one scene with Jack where he's on the stand, and it's that famous "you can't handle the truth" scene, and what's interesting about it is that we were on a set, which was the courtroom set, and he came in and had this big scene, and of course they started. Rob Reiner started with Jack's coverage, and he just blew. Like we were like, oh shit, this is a really good. I mean, you've seen it I'd never seen the play, but I'd seen it on the page, and everybody was like, whoa, he is just crushing this. Now, that's the first few shots of the morning, wider and then a little bit tighter and then a tight, close-up on him. Now we're going to turn around in the afternoon, right? So we have to shoot all the reverse coverage. You got to shoot Tom, you got Tom's reaction, Demi's reaction, my reaction, everybody, the jury, everyone. And Jack is either over his shoulder or off camera for the rest of the day as the camera marches past him. And he just kept doing that speech again and again and again and just knocking it out of the park every time. And the only thing that changed was that these Marine uniforms that we're wearing were incredibly uncomfortable. I don't know if there's any Marines out there who will attest to the truth of that. So by the end of the day, it's like it's open and his hair is like sticking up, and his tie and his collar's over here. Like, but he's still just acting his ass off for everybody's coverage. So, yeah, it was super cool. It was a great moment.
That's awesome. And also because he's playing someone unlikable, and I think to dovetail into your excellent work as a villain. What kind of inspired you to take on like A River Wild with Meryl Streep and then Sleepers too?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Jack because honestly, that was sort of inspired, not from The Few Good Men, but from, Five Easy Pieces, or Last Detail, or The Shining. This is a guy who he never had this thing. I've never found him to be a narcissistic actor. Oh. He's very good at just being sort of unappealing, and he made that really so. But he made that so appealing, Yeah. It was just so, it's just so so great to watch. And that was, honestly, really like very inspirational. That's just, kind of coincidental that you mentioned that. I think that, look, I mean, people have asked me if it's more fun to be a bad guy. I don't think it's necessarily more. What's fun is good, complex, interesting parts that I haven't done either ever before or recently. And, people from different parts of life or socioeconomic or backgrounds or personal tragedies or, whatever it happens to be, the external things. That's what makes it fun. So I don't care. It's not so much about whether they're quote unquote good or bad. I just want to do something new and fresh.
Yeah, that makes sense. We love Kevin as a villain, though, right? It's very good. It's always fun to see. Just real quick about River Wild, it just reminds me of again, your breadth of work is so incredible. But one of my favorite things to talk to actors about is when you get to learn a skill, whether it's temporary or not. Throughout kind of your course of film work, is there a skill that you've gotten to adapt or adopt for a film that you've actually done and stayed doing? Or is there kind of a favorite temporary skill? I don't know if you learned to river raft, but I did. Yeah, I mean,
I loved making that movie because of that particular skill. Now, I wasn't supposed to look like I know what I was doing, but it was certainly a physically overcoming the fear of being in that kind of white water, and we were really in it. Yeah. And all of us had to be rescued at some point. We came out of the boat, yeah, it's good to get past it. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I actually learned and stuck with.
Yeah.
Not really. The last thing I had to learn, the director of this movie that Kira and I did said, is that what, or was it? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it was that movie. He said, "Can you do that thing where you do a quarter? You spin a quarter on your fingers like this?" I worked so fucking hard on that. I mean, and then he was like, "Nah, we don't need to do that." So, and I never really got that great. But boy, I really worked. I was like. And you go, of course, there's YouTube is the greatest, right? So there's like 18,000 guys giving you lessons on how to take a quarter and do this. And one of the things that they would always say is that you need to just do it all the time, like when you're watching TV. And so it almost made me watch more TV because I figured I needed more practice hours on this. I'm still not very good at it.
That's right. One of the things in doing my research, looking into Apollo 13, it still amazes me how you shot that film, and I don't think actors get to be on NASA's zero gravity plane like you guys actually filmed. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure.
That seems like an incredible.
It's
not like you have the skill to be in zero gravity, but I would say you do.
It was incredible, and probably would never really needs to be done again just because CGI is so good. But at that point, if you really wanted to float, you could do it. But it would be very painstaking. You would be in harnesses, and they would be removing harnesses, and it probably wouldn't look that great.
Yeah.
And we had done a training session because NASA really was fond of the movie because I think that it was a kind of a pro-space sort of movie. They were very much in support of it, and they were allowing us to train and to, have access to astronauts with any kind of research, and we had people on the set and stuff like that. They also agreed to let us up in this thing called the KC-135, also known as a vomit comet, which is an airplane that flies out over the Gulf of Mexico from Houston and goes straight up, and then straight down, and then straight up, and then straight down, and then straight up and straight down. And these are called parabolas. And you go like that because for 25 seconds, the centrifugal force balances out with the gravitational pull of the Earth, and you actually do float. And it's a way that they were training astronauts to do, sort of tasks in zero G, because if it's something that you've never done before, it can be a little bit, kind of disconcerting. Yeah. And it's called the vomit comet because obviously if you've ever been on a roller coaster or on a boat, if you get seasick at all, it is incredibly nauseating. But we went out and did one test run of that, and we all survived. It was myself and the rest of the guys in the cast, and Ron, and it came back and landed. I was like, this is awesome. We did it. Yeah, okay, let's go back to Universal and make this movie. And Ron Howard came to us a couple of weeks. Guys, I got great news. He said that he had spoken to Spielberg, and Spielberg had said, why don't you build the sets up there, and you can film the zero gravity in that plane. And so I found out, and had to tell my wife, that we were going to shoot up in this zero G, and we did it 600 times.
That is so remarkable.
Yeah, and basically it was like there was the lunar module and the command module, and then there's this sort of tunnel that connects them. So it was a lot of transitions from there to there. So when you see us floating in the movie, we're actually floating, or truly floating.
Wild. I think that's, yes, applause. Again, it's so fun obviously the talent as an actor, but the extra kind of physicality and sometimes the mental gymnastics that are involved is so impressive. A lot of people love your work in genre. I'd love to talk about Hollow Man, speaking of physical exertion. Stir of Echoes, I think, sort of, floats in genre. Can you talk a little bit about those two, or kind of dabbling in genre and what you love about?
Yeah, I mean, Hollow Man was very, very physically taxing, and part of the reason was talking again about special effects. This is a pretty, or not to get too much in the weeds on the technical side of it, but it was a pretty early computer-generated concept, and we were using a very early generation motion control camera. That the idea was that it would create a shot automatically, you would create the shot, and then it would completely duplicate the exact same shot, and it had to be exactly the same because the plates had to match exactly for when we were going to take me out of it. And of course, I read the script. I was like, this is awesome. I'll be on the looping stage. I'm just going to record my part. I don't even need to be there because I'm invisible for most of the movie. And Verhoeven, Paul Verhoeven, the director, really wanted me there, of course, to interact with the other actors. And a lot of times the character was seen through either walking with a sheet or in smoke or however it was. And because of that, I was the green screen. So for most of the movie, I had to be completely covered in green, either paint or tights with gigantic contacts covering my entire eye and green teeth. And it was an absolute nightmare. I mean, honestly, it was so much harder physically than anything that I've ever done. And also, I loved working with Paul, but he's just a lunatic. I mean, just the drama and and the hours and I'm a pretty patient person.
Yeah.
And at one point we got to this moment in the movie where I had to be covered. My head was covered in latex, and this was this kind of mask that the guys poured latex over his head so that he can be seen, and it had to be glued to my face, and then wore the contact lenses, and they had a brush with glue that was sticking down there. I could only drink out of a straw, the usual kind of stuff that you've seen with the prosthetics, and I would be hours and hours and hours in that chair, and it's the only time I've really lost my shit, and I kicked the door off of the special effects makeup trailer, and I had to apologize to the artist. Was fantastic and very, very hardworking, but it was so hard.
If that's the only time you got frustrated, that's a pretty good track record.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot of your co-stars that are probably a lot more frustrated than that. We won't get into that. Do you have a favorite on-screen death, or like a favorite death sequence you got to shoot? Some fun ones.
Yeah, I've had some good ones. I don't know. Maxine is kind of cool. That's the recent one. Yeah, getting crushed in the car. Yeah, Ty West, who directed that, was so excited about it. It was the thing. Of course, I'm thinking like, how about the scene where I'm, playing, the scene with Mia? God, how about the scene where Mia and I are talking? He's like, yeah, that's good. Wait till you see your death,
That's fun though. Can you talk a little bit about how you choose projects now? Has your compass changed at all? Because again, if and when you Google Kevin, when you guys are outside, like the sheer volume is so intense that I'm just wondering kind of how you chose, if projects choose you and vice versa.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess the first thing is the character.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at the other pieces of it. Director, obviously, and script and cast and location. I mean, I tried my best to not think about the size of the budget, the size of my salary, or the size of the role. If I can take those three things out of it, of course, I want to make as much money as is fair, and of course, sometimes it's really fun to be in a $150, $200 million movie, but sometimes I'm totally fine doing a $2 million movie. Yeah. And I also don't worry about the size of the part. If it's a great part that's, in 2 pages, I'm there. I mean, I also don't have a lot. I've never had much of a career plan, honestly. Yeah. I probably should have that more and say, I think what I really need to do is, whatever. Right. But I just don't do it.
Yeah. When did directing become a passion, kind of like acting, and seeing it and observing and then wanting to do it yourself?
Yes, definitely. It's that thing of starting to ask, what does this do? What does this do? And it just kind of continues, and then starting to talk to directors, and then I started to look at dailies, for instance. That was a really interesting thing from a directing standpoint. And I always made my own little films, and had sort of started to edit on platforms, and so. I directed a couple of things that Kira produced early on, and I also, most of the directing that I did was with her. Directed The Closer, 4 times, I think. And
I love The Closer.
Yeah.
We're talking about Kira Sedgwick, just
Kira
in
Sedgwick,
case you guys
yeah.
aren't aware, just a little, make name check.
Want to stand up and take a bow?
She's here with us. She's here with us in the front row. I also want to talk about, we talked about your body of work, the incredible credits, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, kind of embracing it, and then what you've done with your wonderful foundation?
Yeah, sure. I heard about the game a long time ago. I think it was Howard Stern. I heard Howard talking about this game, and I was horrified by the idea. I've said multiple times, just because I thought it was truly a joke at my expense. Because, again, it's the imposter syndrome where you think, wow, here's a great actor, and what's really weird is Kevin Bacon can be connected to that actor. You know what I mean? It's like that's exactly where my head went. That was the humor in this thing. But it just didn't go away, so I was kind of hoping it would fade. It didn't fade. It hung in there. And in 2007, I was trying to figure out some kind of a way to give back, to try to do something. I mean, I was kind of a little bit spread out in terms of where I was showing up or where I was asked to be, whether they be different, causes or charity or functions or dinners or, whatever those things were, where people were trying to spread good. And so I thought about 6 Degrees, and we launched 6degrees.org, which the fabulous women from 6degrees.org are here with me in Austin, and we focus on really super grassroots organizations and people who are out there in the field doing good, all kinds of work, whether it's with children or the environment or social justice, and we try to amplify those voices, and it's been really, really satisfying. Great.
You did something recently for your sweet mom, yeah?
Yeah, that was actually really cool. I grew up in Philadelphia. my mom's name was Ruth, and she was an activist and worked really a lot in the community and all kinds of the charitable things. And one of the things that she got involved with was the Graterford Prison in Philadelphia. She started a children's learning center there where when the inmates were getting visited by their wives and kids and families, there was nothing for them to do as they interacted. So she created this playroom where there was, art supplies and games and things that they could do together as a family, and it was, hugely successful. And so 6 Degrees, along with an organization called Rock to the Future in Philly that provides music and instruments and stuff for kids in underserved communities, put together a music room in a detention center in Philadelphia. And it's really great. So like the young people who are temporarily in a bad situation, right, have a place where they can go and have a sense of community and make music and nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, so nice. Do we count as first degree now, being in this room with you?
Yeah.
First, second degree, probably. By the way, I do want to say you guys are asking wonderful questions that have been incorporated that I've been trying to incorporate as we go along. I'm not taking credit for everything I've discussed because you have killer audiences have great questions. One, I'm going to throw to one right now. Of the roles in your career that you've declined, is there one that you regret more than others? Or do you remember them?
Oh, that I've passed on?
Yeah.
Here, I really don't like to answer that question. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
There's 2 reasons.
Fair.
There's a few reasons. The first one is that it's not mine. So if somebody else came in and knocked it out of the park, there's no saying that I would have done that. Or it's like if you move one little piece in the universe, is it going to end up in the same way?
Sure.
And the second thing is that sometimes there's this thing in Hollywood where people tend to think that they were offered something that they weren't.
Oh.
They'll kind of go, I passed on that. and you find out that really someone made a call and just inquired, and somebody inquired of you availability that was never really an offer, So even to define something as something that I passed on, I have to know that was, might not be real. Gotcha. And the third thing is that I don't have a good memory for that kind of stuff. I really don't. I don't hold on to it. I just keep moving ahead. Yeah.
Is there a risk that you're most proud of? Something that maybe people didn't think was going to be as great or fulfilling as it ended up being?
Well, I can tell you I did a movie, although very few people saw it, but I'm certainly proud of it, called The Woodsman. That both Kira and I were in, and Lee Daniels, producers, directed by Nikki Cassell. And it's kind of a wild story. I was walking up the beach at Christmas in the Caribbean, and I'd see this guy every year, and I knew he was in real estate, and he was from Philly, and he came up to me and said, "Let me ask you something. If somebody gave you a script, would you know whether or not it was an Oscar winner or not?" And I was like, would I know if it was not? Because they gave me this script to finance, and they telling me that it's going to win Oscars. And would you mind reading it for me? So I read it, and when we got back to New York, and I said to my wife, "Honey, you're going to kill me, but this is a great script, and it's to play a pedophile."
Yeah.
And she was like, "No." No. Why would you want to, like, why can't you make something where you're like a nice guy or you're sexy or heroic, and then she read it and she was like, "You have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to." And then weirdly, I was not even in the running. She was actually the director's first choice. The guy from the beach ended up not investing in it, but we did make the movie.
Wow.
And it's for those of you who haven't seen it, I not just because Both of us are in it, but I really do recommend it. It's a very powerful movie,
Yeah.
but a tough one for people to really want to
Right.
to want to push play.
Right. Well, I mean, some of my favorites are when you've played romantic leads. She's having a baby. That's an older one. My first exposure to Kate Bush. Oh, yes. Thank
Kate
you.
Bush, yeah.
Wonderful audience. She's having a baby. Great. Picture Perfect with Jennifer Aniston. I love. Crazy Stupid Love. I also love. I don't know if you can seek out those roles, but what do you enjoy about kind of a romantic hero or just, that kind of genre versus the others?
Well, I guess I wouldn't even say that I necessarily enjoy that genre more than others. I mean, I think that, again, if it's an interesting script and a good cast and cool directors and just a character that has something to them that I can hook. I think that comedy is something that is really has been sort of elusive. I haven't done or been known for that much comedy, but I really do like doing it. I mean, I really do, and I think that it's what I'm really grateful about, though, is that I was kind of known first as a dramatic actor, because to be known as a comedic actor and then be accepted in a drama is a much harder transition, I think.
Sure.
Because I think when we go to the movies, if it's somebody that makes us laugh, we just really want them to make us laugh when we go to the movies. And if we see them and they don't make us laugh, it can really kind of bum us out, I think, in a strange way. So it's a hard transition to make. There's a few people that have done it so well, and it's always so exciting for me to see that. But I would love to do more comedy. I really would. I don't find it to be thin or just easier. It's hard, but I love it.
Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit about your work on television. Some excellent guest spots. Will and Grace comes to mind for sure. But the following too, I mean, completely different genres. But can you talk a little about TV? Obviously, that's a medium that's exploded in the last 20 years. But
yeah, it's hard to imagine. But when the following came around, that was a time when if you were a movie actor, you didn't do TV, and I was definitely anti-TV. I used to say that if my agent came to me with a TV series, I would fire my agent, which is just a crazy notion to think about.
Yeah.
But to me, it was sort of a vote of no confidence. But when Kira was on The Closer for all those years, I saw how really super satisfying it was for her. She really loved doing it and got a lot of great opportunities to work and then I was basically for 7 years I was holding her train as she went to award show after award show, and I'm just there following in her footsteps. And so I eventually made a very reluctant call to my management and said, okay, I'm ready to throw my hat in the ring for television. And this day after I made that call, I got 3 fantastic pilot scripts. And I went, wow, why am I being so dumb about this? This is a really great time. It was around, I don't know, it was probably post-Sopranos and The Wire, and, things were happening on cable, and, it's not HBO, it's television, and, the whole thing. And so the following rolled around, and I said, okay, and it was network, but I was just knocked out by the pilot, and it was, really great. I loved doing it. I loved it. It's hard. I don't think there's a harder gig in acting entertainment than an hour-long drama.
Right.
If you're number one on the call sheet, even if you're not number one, but that is a very intense shooting schedule. The hours are really long, and the following was a really dark place to go all the time, but I loved it. And then I did I Love Dick, which unfortunately only got 1 season, but was absolutely bonkers and completely different than the following. And I got to work with Catherine Hahn and Griffin Dunn, and that was just such a blast. And then City on the Hill.
Yeah. All good ones. We're pivoting. We're talking about TV because we have a special treat for you all today. We're going to talk about the Bondsman real quick.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get to see a sneak peek of it before, again, the time goes too fast. There's too many things to talk about with Mr. Bacon here. Let's talk about the Bondsman. This, I think, outside looking in, seems to combine a lot of your excellent strengths, right? And like there's some genre, there's a musician at play, so
Yeah.
we finally get to have you playing music. Can you talk a little bit about the Bondsman, the fun of the accent, being a demon hunter?
Yeah, the Bondsman takes place in Appalachia, and I play a guy who is a bounty hunter, bondsman, and as you will, find out pretty quickly, you find out that he's dead, and that he gets brought back from death, and has been hired essentially or enlisted as a bounty hunter for the devil, who there's some demons escaping from hell, and there's all that, but it's really a very in some ways kind of sweet and funny family story, rounded story. Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah. I am a character who has not quite grown up. I live essentially in my mother's garage at this age, and I had a wife and a son, but the marriage fell apart, partly because we had a musical duo, and I was unwilling to commit to that in the same way that she was. And Jennifer Nettles plays my wife. Yeah. And it's really a fun show. It's bloody, it's violent, it's got demons, right. It's funny, and there's a musical component too. Yeah. Yeah.
It is. It's got everything.
It's got everything. And I was when we first started doing the show, we were talking about where the music was going to come from, and someone suggested that I could write for it, and because I'm a songwriter, and I said I just want to make it really clear that I'll be happy to write songs, but you don't have to use them because I'm in it. Don't do me any favors. I want the songs in the show to be the best that they can possibly be. I want the show to be the best that they can possibly be. I've rarely combined any music with my acting career, just because I really have always felt like I should keep them separate. Wow. Yeah, I've got the band with my brother, Bacon Brothers, but I started to just kind of think about this character and writing from his point of view, and it turns out that Jennifer Nettles, who was cast as my wife, Mary Ann, is a fantastic singer. She was a singer first before being an actor, and a great songwriter. Yeah. So right away we went and sat down and wrote one, and then we wrote another one, and then we wrote another one, and so some of the songs that we've written are in the show. Yeah.
Is that why there have not been any Bacon Brothers songs in your projects that you've never
Well,
you could use your clout to be like, let's just put one in here.
We have tried, but okay. But I really don't. Like I said, I just don't want to kind of trade on that and somehow cheapen both. In fact, one of the first songs that was ever rejected was called "Beneath Perfection." But we still play the song in the show, and I like the song. It's just they changed the title of the movie. Nice,
yeah, good one to listen to afterwards. Well, that's a good little intro. So you guys can get a sneak peek of the Bondsman. Just so you know, you're one of the first audiences to see what we're about to show you. Please, no photos, no video at this part, because it's just for you guys. Please welcome a sneak peek of the Bondsman. Woohoo! Yeah! I would say, and then what happens? However, you all are going to get to see this very soon. The Bondsman is coming to Prime Video very, very soon. We think you have
April 3rd.
Yes. There we go. Thank you. I'm like, I don't know if I could say the date. April 3rd. As I said before, there was so much more to cover, but you guys have been a fantastic, fantastic crowd. Mr. Bacon, if you have any parting words, such a pleasure to discuss.
Thank you all for, you never know when you do these things. I expected there might be tumbleweeds in this audience. So thank you all for showing up today. I know you got a lot of options here in town, so Thanks for coming and hanging out.
Thank you so much.